So now the question of whether or not you can get an extension to your residence visa considered while you're offshore. That is, historically you've needed to be back in Hong Kong in order to progress an extension of stay application if you're an existing resident. The idea being that if you're a resident of Hong Kong, you need to be in Hong Kong on the day that you apply for your extension of stay. There has always been a mechanism for you to be offshore and then come back to Hong Kong as a visitor after the date of your residence visa expiry, and then apply for what's known as a reinstatement of your residence status for some good reason that's kept you away from Hong Kong on the date that your that your visa was expiring. That reinstatement process is still there and has always been available, but a few months ago the Immigration Department enabled a process where you can be offshore and apply for an extension of stay. And the way that works is that following the normal procedures for extension of stay, albeit you not being physically present in Hong Kong, you write a supporting letter in addition to the normal documents that are needed for your extension of stay application. Process takes a bit longer. It's about a 6-week process all told, and then you can make that application at the moment, at least under temporary measures in force for the meanwhile, anytime within 12 months of the expiry of your current residence visa. And then the Immigration Department will give you a new visa label that will enable you to return to Hong Kong anytime within 6 months of the date of the grant of that offshore extension. And that will then conceptually, if you think about it, give you potentially up to about 18 months to return back to Hong Kong and have your residence visa be deemed as a back-to-back residence visa throughout all the time that you've held it, even if you applied offshore and you spent some time offshore in the wake of your approval offshore before you return back to Hong Kong to activate it. And the key thing about that is that the visa label specifically denotes that it's for all practical purposes a back-to-back extension, and that has an impact on your ability to have it positively considered at the time that you apply for permanent residency after 7 years, if indeed that's what you go on to do. It doesn't automatically follow that just because you've been able to get an offshore extension, sometime activatable in those 18 months, doesn't automatically follow that you will be able to qualify for permanent residency during that time as a result of that mechanism being used in your circumstances. You still have to go on and explain there was nothing in the pattern of your behaviour that meant that you were doing anything that was leading to you abandoning your intention to remain permanently settled in Hong Kong throughout the time that you were away. But it does mean that you can get yourself a back-to-back residence visa situation in play, which is half of the battle, at least when you're applying for permanent residency subsequently. But you do have to return back to Hong Kong within the time frame that the Immigration Department have indicated, which is 6 months from the date of the visa grant once your offshore activation, your offshore application has been positively considered, and then enabling you to come back to Hong Kong to pick up from where you left off.